Good day, my dears, and welcome to our house at number 32 High Street. 'Tis a pleasure to have visitors, though our home is a little cramped for our large family. My husband, Sidney Day, and I have 8 children to feed, and as you see, I am busy cooking to make sure my family has a meal on the table. I tell you, they retired after a long day's work. My name is Hannah Day.
Well, this is a representation of a Victorian kitchen, and one of the props of the kitchen is an image of Hannah Day. But Hannah Day really did live here 200 years ago with her family, her husband Sidney and their 8 children. And we've fitted it out so that it looks with some imitation food and so on, and the range, and pots and pans. Percy Day, aged 14, scratched his initials on the glass cabinet in the front room. They're still there, in very good copper plate scratching. It was opened in July 1981. In fact, it arose from a collection by a man called Puffy Bowden, who was collecting things that he thought should not be thrown away, and eventually filled his house with them, had his own private museum. When we started, this was supposed to be temporary premises. This was all those years ago. People say, well, because lots of artefacts kept coming in, and we had nowhere to put them. People kept saying, oh, well, you've got to have somewhere bigger, but anywhere bigger came with an enormous rent, unfortunately, so we're stuck with this one. On the other hand, this little cottage has quite a lot of character. People like the cottage as much as the artefacts in it.
Museum's got something like that too. Oh, look at the old hunting. Is that oh, the Order of Foresters. Yeah. Gosh. But it's nice to come to places like this because, well, we didn't know it existed, did we?
No. It's quite
the
interesting.
old town hall. Was it when it was bombed?
What's the interest for you in coming into places like
I love history. I love going around churchyards as well. I often walk around those and look at the gravestones and just see and try and imagine what their lives were like.
I just think a lot of the old skills have gone.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to see it's kept for perhaps somebody in the future to try their hand at it.
I come in to wind the clock, empty the dehumidifier, generally tidy the place up, especially the weather we've had lately. The dehumidifier needs attention at least every other day, so I'm in here just a little bit, as often as that. In the off-season, after September, during the winter, we generally tend to have a bit of a change around. We have in the past completely redecorated it, and I usually decided we'll reorganise the exhibits, have some sort of theme. You know, we've got the Victorian kitchen, for example, as a theme. That was about 3 years ago. It was so popular, we've kept it. And we've had other themes, like the French prisoners here, and transport, and so on. And at the moment, we've got an exhibition on Wincanton in wartime. We've got exhibits from the First and Second World Wars. We're open at the moment for 3 mornings a week, and we have a rota of stewards and volunteers to come and sit there and answer questions and so on, look after the place.
So it's run totally by local volunteers?
Oh yes, yes. There are people who are very studious and read all the notices in great detail. Other people come in, look around and go out again. In between, most people are interested in somewhere or other. They're either interested in specific things. They're usually interested in Hannah Day, and they come in, depends where they're coming from. If they're sort of local, or at least from this country, they say, yes, as I said, my granny had one of those, and that sort of thing. We get quite a lot of people from overseas, and they're interested in this as an example of the British way of life, I think. We have parties of school children, you know, about 50 at a time. Well, we have to split them up into groups because the place is too small. Yes, all ages. When we have the very small ones, I put some mats on the floor and get them to sit down I bring in various objects and say, what do you think this is? And we get some marvellous answers. The favourite one is the box brownie camera. That turns out to be a pencil sharp because it's got a hole in the front and a knob on the side. You can see the thinking behind that. And then some of the older ones, we take them in groups around, show them various things. We've also just recently lent a whole lot of things to the school. This was on kitchen utensils and that sort of thing, old things which they're interested in. They were sort of doing that at the school. So we lent them a whole lot of that stuff like that.
Are the children immediately enthusiastic when they come in? Or?
Yes, they usually are. In fact, the younger ones are more enthusiastic than the older ones. When they get to teenagers, well, you know what. They know it all.
The conventional thinking is that children find museums dull unless there's lots of buttons to press.
Well, let's say we haven't got any buttons to press apart from Hannah's button, but no, they seem to have been very interested. I suppose with the help of the teachers at school, knowing what to expect. A couple of years ago now, our local secondary school, King Arthur's, had its 50th anniversary. And they said, could we do an exhibition on 1950s stuff? Well, most of our stuff is earlier than that, but I raked up some stuff of my own in various places and put on a 1950s exhibition. They were fascinated because 1950s is the dark ages as far as they're concerned. They'd never seen a conventional typewriter or a folding camera or a so-called portable radio of those days. They were fascinated. All too often people come in and say, oh, I've lived here so many years. I didn't know there was a museum because we've got a very small frontage, which doesn't help, I suppose. People busy doing their shopping whiz past. Yeah, an awful lot of people don't know we've got a museum. Then other people say, yes, I keep meaning to come in. Some of the towns, in the southwest, people go there because it's a place to go. And while they're there, they go to the museum. And they can afford to charge and so on. People don't flock to Wincanton or anything particular. We do sometimes get people who are staying at the racecourse and the caravan park and come down to the town, see what's going on. And occasionally a coach party comes in at lunchtime, but we do suffer from not being very visible, I suppose. If anyone asks me about what the museum's about, what is the museum of, I just say it's the social history of the town, the social history of Wincanton, because we don't have a collection of any specific objects that people come miles to see, but there's always something associated with a particular object. It may be a local person, or just the way things used to be. And I think people ought to have come here and have a look at how things used to be, because as I was saying about the children, 50 years ago is the dark ages to them. With the way technology progresses, they can pick all sorts of things up and they say, what on earth is that? And if we just let it go, don't drag people in, they won't know. It's just educational, really, I think. It's the main thing.